Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. I am Abdullahi Ahmed. Tonight, we dive into a political wave reshaping the African continent, a generational power shift driven by youth demanding a seat at the table. But breaking into a political class dominated by the wealthy and the entrenched elite is no easy feat. From Senegal to Sierra Leone and potentially Nigeria, young aspirants are pushing back, eager to write the continent's leadership story. We unpack the trends, the roadblocks, and what it means for the future of African democracy. Joining us tonight from Freetown in Sierra Leone is Macauley, a top presidential hopeful in Sierra Leone and the country's former anti-corruption commissioner. Macauley, thank you so much for joining us on the program. A pleasure to have you join us for tonight's conversation. All right. We're just going to take a moment's break. We'll be back momentarily for an in-depth conversation about the politics in Sierra Leone, why it is charged when the elections is 3 years away, and of course, what some of those underlying factors say about what is happening in West Africa vis-a-vis some of the grumblings around democracy and the quality of governance it is able to give its citizens or unable to attain in terms of the deliverables. Let's now speak to our guest from Freetown, Macauley. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. First and foremost, I believe a lot of Nigerians would like to know, because this has become such a phenomenon in Africa especially. I mean, every other time we seem to have an election, the subsequent years that follow is mainly supposed to be about governance, but the atmosphere always remains politically charged. In your country, for instance, the next election is some 3 years away. Please explain to our viewers why the atmosphere in Sierra Leone is politically charged.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here. The reason is simple. The last election, which was held in 2023, ended in quite controversial fashion, and we still have the main presidential candidate of the All People's Congress in the 2023 election still contesting those elections. So the elections have been concluded and a winner was announced, but it appears that that has never gone away because of the controversial circumstances that surrounded those elections.
And for the most part, right, Senegal, I beg your pardon, Sierra Leone is, has been enjoying democracy, or at least experiencing democracy for the past 2 decades now. Talk to us about the quality of that in terms of the deliverables, good governance, and what the people are yearning for. Do you think that those 2 decades have yielded much fruit?
To some extent, it's a mixed baggage. As you know, democracy is not achieved in one day. It is gradual. And for most of the time, we've had a situation where elections are held on time. People seem to follow democratic norms, but the elections have always been controversial. For example, in 2018 and 2023, those elections were fiercely fought between the main political parties, that is the All People's Congress, the APC, and the SLPP, which is the Sierra Leone People's Party, which is the ruling party. And the rule of law has had a very mixed baggage in terms of being respected. Constitutionality is also another issue which has a lot of baggage with it. For example, quite a lot of politically appointed persons were relieved of their duties against the constitutional provisions. And we had a midterm census which was not provided by the Constitution in 2022. So human rights has also been an issue, especially freedom of expression. Protest is something which is not basically tolerated in Sierra Leone. I mean, I cannot remember when was the last time a protest was sanctioned by the Sierra Leone police. They've always turned down requests for protest. So I can say that the political atmosphere in Sierra Leone is a mixed baggage, like I said in the past.
And what is your diagnosis of the challenges that Sierra Leone, like most of its neighbors in the region, continue to face?
One of the biggest issues we have is that we have a trend of young leaders in West Africa, which is gaining momentum. This is largely driven by demographic shift. Increased political engagement amongst youth has also driven the desire for them to challenge for political leadership. But they have faced challenges because veteran political leaders have stood in their way. Many come up with the argument that you still have a lot to learn in the art of politics. So you have to remain apprentices. I mean, in many political parties in West Africa, people will tell you that in their 40s and 50s, they still call themselves youths. So this is a challenge that young people are faced. 60% of the population in West Africa is below 25. And this has given them the desire to engage politically and seek political leadership, as against the stance of the veteran political leaders of this country. So there comes the tension.
Right. And if you have to put it on a scale, right? I mean, obviously we know democracy, like any other form of governance, is a work in progress. I mean, you can only hope to fine tune some of these issues as you go along. Talk to me about some of those gains, especially regarding the quality of the elections. The international community has, of course, observed with some consternation some of those concerns back in 2023 in Sierra Leone, for instance. The elections were not only unstable, they were quite violent at some point. Talk to me about some of those gains that have been recorded and what still needs fine-tuning ahead of 2028.
So I will take you back to 1996-97, which is the post-war political entrance of the democratic 1991 constitution. We had an election in 1997, which was not so perfect, but it was acceptable to many. And we also had elections in 2002, in 2007, and 2012. 2018, to some extent, was also in a way accepted, but the one in 2023, where to many people, even with the international communities, international observers, did conclude that they were not free, fair, and credible. And they said the outcome of the elections that was announced by the Electoral Commission was not statistically possible. So that just tells you how terrible, the elections were. And this has caused quite a reversal in the democratic gains we've experienced, because since the 2023 elections, we've experienced about 2 or 3 alleged coups. And the only reason why I believe that we've had these incidents is because the elections have been seriously contested, and many people, I don't believe in coups at all, and it's not an excuse. Bad elections are not an excuse for you to try to usurp political power by use of the gun. But again, it's a reason why we are experiencing what we are experiencing now.
Right. And Mr. Hadi, just zooming out a little bit out of the issues in Sierra Leone, the global economy is still experiencing some shocks. Some would say that it's on a downward trend. Talk to me about some of the issues shaping the conversations in Sierra Leone. Workers' welfare, unemployment, and some of these issues. Are these issues the driving factor in the political discourse, or is identity politics still pretty much prevailing?
So there are 2 things that are driving the political dividing in the country. One is identity politics, and the second one is the very difficult economic and social circumstances that people find themselves today. The minimum wage is no longer enough for you to buy a bag of rice. The minimum wage is no longer enough for you to buy a bag of rice. And people cannot meet the bare daily cost of taking care of their families. So these are seriously posed challenges. And the government has been unable to come up with economic remedies to cushion these very difficulties. We do accept that there have been global economic downturn, which has had shocks in Sierra Leone, like in many other countries. But the difference is that in other countries, their government have been able to put together policies that cushions the economic shock that has affected them through the global economic crisis. We've not been able to do that in Sierra Leone, so this is causing us serious problems. I mean, the electricity is epileptic. Not every citizen is able to have access to clean drinking water. I mean, transportation is terrible. The roads are not good. So these are the problems that people face in Sierra Leone.
And just to point out the second part of that question about identity politics, which you say is also quite instrumental in the political discourse in Sierra Leone. Do you think that this could be yet again another deciding factor going into 2028?
Identity politics has always been part of our politics in Sierra Leone. But I believe it is not going to be the decisive factor this time around. The decisive factor is going to be the cost of living. People can no longer earn enough to look after their families and themselves. They cannot earn enough to send their kids to school. They cannot earn enough to get the basic necessities of a human being. So these are going to be the decisive factors. Human rights, decline in human rights, civil liberties, all of these Sierra Leoneans are tired of.
Yeah, and in talking about one of the most obvious things that has become the bane, so to say, of development in Africa, for instance, corruption, something you're all too familiar with. Talk to us about your experience in the Anti-Corruption Commission and how that is signposting some of the inabilities of government institutions to function, and how it is in fact responsible for some of the challenges that your country continues to face today.
Corruption is the signpost for underdevelopment in Africa, more so in Sierra Leone. I was an anti-corruption prosecutor, and I became the head of the anti-corruption for 2 years. And Sierra Leone was doing really poorly. But when I came to take over the Anti-Corruption Commission, for me, I see the fight against corruption as a systems and processes fight. It is not a fight where you arrest, lock up people. I mean, you're not going to deter people by locking them up. You deter people by creating systems and processes that reduces the opportunity for people to be corrupt. Like in Sierra Leone, the present government is touting that they've reduced, they've basically improved in the TI corruption index. But that is just an index. When you come to the ground, the facts on the ground are that people are experiencing corruption on a daily basis. Traffic police are still harassing, taxi drivers and taxi drivers and commercial drivers. And you go to ministries and agencies of government. If you don't get involved in oiling the wheels, you will not get your stuff done. I mean, the Auditor General's report has come out in the past, 5 years, and I will tell you that year in, year out, she does bring out issues that have spent funds. And when she dared to indicate in one of our audit reports that one of the presidential delegation to Lebanon made a return of false or fake receipts, which they said they received from a hotel. She was basically summarily sent on leave. And there was a kangaroo inquiry which was set up, and she was basically removed from her office. And this is an Auditor General that basically gave audit reports which the current government in opposition used to get into government. And now all of a sudden they don't want to become accountable. And the hero of Sierra Leone, who was Lara Taylor Pierce, who everybody thought was quite upright and was not political. I mean, our audit reports, we are not contested by anyone. But again, she's been removed. And, you know, Sierra Leone is in need of change. And that is the change we are seeking.
Right, and given that corruption is such a common topic and a common denominator, not just in Africa but across the world, do you see a room for a regional collaboration or an effort from the ECOWAS bloc, so to say, to put up a united front to address these issues?
One of the ways in which I think corruption can be handled is economic empowerment. And when you look at the population in the ECOWAS sub-region, there are about 450 million people in the ECOWAS sub-region. If we are able to realize and actualize the political and economic integration plans that are in the ECOWAS protocol and other ECOWAS documents, I believe that economic prosperity and development will go right across the ECOWAS bloc. And I believe this will, in a very large way, reduce the trend of corruption that is quite prominent in our countries.
And let's, zoom back to talk about the conversation around democracy and the politics of the sub-region. The past couple of years have been quite a tumultuous one. In fact, the region, the bloc, ECOWAS, has lost 3 of its members who have now formed the alliance, the Sahelian Alliance, and there are growing concerns that there could be more. Your country has had to deal with quite a lot in terms of political instability, where the military has threatened democratic rule. Do you worry that, this particular virus that is military dictatorship that is seemingly sweeping across the sub-region could become an alternative, especially given the groundswell support across Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea-Bissau?
This is quite a credible risk that we face. Don't forget, in just November, in just a year ago, there was an attempted coup in Sierra Leone. I can tell you the deficit in democratic values has, to a very large extent, fueled military coups in our sub-region. I mean, where you have elections and the outcome of those elections do not reflect the will of the people. We have governments that are going for re-election who do not even wait for ballot papers to be counted. They will announce themselves as winners. And the judiciaries are mostly compromised. They tend to do what the executive wants them to do. So there has been a democracy deficit in the sub-region. And I believe if this trend is not arrested, I'm afraid we're going to have re-emergence of military coups in West Africa. And that will be an unfortunate development, because we in Sierra Leone, for example, we have experienced democratic elections in the past 4 decades, and we believe that that is the way to go. I mean, you cannot seize power through the barrel of the gun. I mean, we can no longer accommodate military dictators in our continent, more so in Sierra Leone.
And let's talk about your political party, the All People's Congress, which is quite synonymous to the APC we have here in Nigeria, which is rather a ruling political party. Talk to me about some of the internal divisions there, because analysts have pointed that out as one of the reasons that could allow the ruling party to consolidate and set yet another record. Should the vice president succeed the president, that would definitely make it a record for the ruling party. But talk to me about your party's internal divisions and how that could be amended, so to say, ahead of 2028.
Internal divisions are present in every political party in the world, because even when people are in the same political party, they have different ideologies. So the All People's Congress is not different from that. Of course, there are divisions here and there, but I believe since the emergence of the 19 of the 2022 constitution. To a very large extent, our divisions in our party have been healed. And so what we are doing now is consolidating, and we are in the process of having our lower level election starting August for us to get a new presidential candidate and leader of the party, of which I am also an aspirant. So I can say by and large that the APC is largely united, and we are poised to take governance in 2028.
You look at what's happening in Senegal with President Diomaye Faye, the groundswell support that their movement had with everything that the Macky Sall administration threw at them and how they survived it, and what looks like a new political era in Senegal. What would it take for something like that to be replicated in Sierra Leone, and is that what you're hoping to achieve?
That is what we are seeking to do. It's about us having, the courage of our conviction to say, regardless of what the current government throws at us, we are going to take over governance through the ballot box in 2028, which is why we are galvanizing at the earliest opportunity. And when you look at the field of aspirants, probably 50 to 60% of them are very young people. And that brings with it energy, resilience, and determination. And I believe what happened in Senegal is something which we are very much poised to replicate in Sierra Leone.
And talk to me about what comes next. Because youth apathy is not something that is quite unique to Sierra Leone. It's something quite, frankly, global, to say the least. What can political parties like yours, political leaders like you do to deactivate that passiveness that always stops you from taking an active role in politics or in elections that have the potential of changing their economic well-being?
So basically, it's about creating a level playing field for each and every political aspirant in a political party, especially for women, because as you know, the political space, especially in Africa, is a very difficult one for women for very many reasons. But I believe that we can adopt policies that are youth and gender friendly to encourage our female folks to take greater part in our political process. That will also drive political participation in the country and in our party as well.
And would Sierra Leoneans be wrong to think that you are part of the system or establishment that you're trying to replace? I mean, you've served at the highest positions, especially your position at the ACC, for instance. How are you any different from the other political or politicians who have had their chance and have fallen short of delivering the dividends of democracy to the people?
I have a track record as a technocrat, as an anti-corruption prosecutor, as an anti-corruption head. Before 2018, I never got involved in politics, so I cannot count myself to be in the political class that you're trying to talk about. But I'm a politician now, and I believe that my candidacy brings in the opportunity and hope that there will be fresh ideas injected into the party and also fresh ideas injected in the country. Don't forget that 60 to 70% of the population in Sierra Leone is below 50. And many of us that are coming up for political leadership in the country have never been involved in the political leadership fight of the country. So I cannot put myself in that bracket.
And back to your political party, the APC, it appears to be fragmented with some unresolved leadership issues and power struggle between the old and the new guards. And I suppose it's fair to put you in the new guard category. But you have, a lot of people that you have to deal with or contend with in your quest to get the flag in 2028. Samura Kamara remains the key opposition figure in Sierra Leone. Ibrahim Gombangura, Samuel Sam Sumana, the likes of Cheno Majuba. Other contenders include the mayor of Freetown, Yvonne Akisoya. Talk to me about what is happening there, and is there a chance we're going to see the APC pull its act together and present a united front? Because the SLPP, for instance, looks a lot more coordinated and has the support that it needs.
The SLPP is not coordinated. If you go through the local tabloids and social media, there is so much division in the ruling party. The first lady of the country, Fatima Bio, who is largely involved in the politics of the country, fighting ministers, especially the chief minister, calling ministers of government dogs and all of that. Nothing beats that. Nothing beats that. But in our party, you've called quite a few names that are also aspiring for the leadership of our party. And this just tells you that the party has largely changed. Because if you see young people and women coming up for political leadership, it's because the space has been created for them. And I will tell you, all of these people you've mentioned, I am in very good terms with them. I visited them when I intended to declare my candidacy. I paid them courtesy calls. Some of them I telephoned them, and we're in very much cordial terms. And I believe that we as a party have come to the realization that until we reunite, we are not going to be able to form a solid bloc to remove this government, which only cheats to win election. And I can tell you that come February 2026, we are going to have a leader and presidential flag bearer of the party, who each and every aspirant is going to stand behind and support for victory in 2028.
And just before we let you go, Mr. Adi Macauley, talk to me about what appears to be a dichotomy between how certain leaders inspire the support of their people, especially the youth demographic, for instance. In Africa, we're seeing the kind of support an individual like Ibrahim Traore, for instance, in Burkina Faso is inspiring. What sort of message do you have for the youth in Sierra Leone to unlock that same passion that they have, that they potentially can have to stimulate the kind of support the APC needs, people like you need on election day?
The message I have for them is a message of hope, that each and every Sierra Leonean should be able to have the opportunity to realize their potential to the fullest without regard to their religion, without regard to their tribe. And the only way they can do that is to have the courage of their conviction, get involved in politics, and become vocal. I mean, when you look at Sonko and Faye in Senegal, I mean, against all odds, they stood their ground, steadfast, continue advocating, locked up, not getting, tired, not getting deterred. And at the end of the day, they were able to wrestle power away from Macky Sall, who thought he was the giant of Senegalese politics. So I believe that the youths of Sierra Leone have woken up to the realization that there is so much power in their hands, where 60 to 70% of the population is youthful. If all of you come together, I don't see any force that can defeat you. And that is what we're going to do in Sierra Leone.
Mr. Adi Macauley, thank you so much for speaking to us tonight. Appreciate you for taking the time. Thank you for the analysis. We wish you all the very best. 2028 looks like a long way from here, but of course in politics, it could look like a blink of an eye. Thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics.
Thank you very much for having me.